question 1, which is a solution to the following equation, what you have to do is try to solve for x. So if you look at the left-hand side of the equation, negative x and negative 6x are like terms. If you add them together, you get negative 7x plus 7 equals 19 minus 7x. If you try to find your x terms by adding 7x to both sides, what happens is they cancel out on both sides of the equation. So you end up with 7 equals 19, which is not equivalent. So the answer is no solution. Now, there's a second way you could have solved this problem. You could have a step where you had negative 7x plus 7 equals 19 minus 7x. You could have first tried to combine the constants. So let's say I move the 7 over to the 19, you get 12. And then, when you try to combine x's, you get 0 equals 12. So you don't have to have necessarily the same work as somebody else. You just have to have two constants that are not equal to each other. It gives you no solution. It depends upon which steps you did in which order to solve the equation. Looking at question 2, the length of the shortest side of a right triangle is 8 inches. So I'm going to draw myself a right triangle. The shortest side is 8 inches. The other two sides are represented by consecutive integers. So I know the hypotenuse has to be longest. So if I'm talking about two consecutive integers, the side here must be x, and the hypotenuse must be x plus 1. Now, in order to find the length of the triangle, you have to think about the Pythagorean theorem, which says that leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. So the answer to this one would have been choice 1. Looking at question 3, you want to solve for r. So the first thing you're going to do is rewrite the equation. Now, I see that on the right-hand side there's a 1/3. So I'm going to get rid of that by multiplying by the reciprocal of a third, which is 3. So 3 on both sides. So I get 3b equals pi r squared h. Now again, I'm solving for r. So since this is attached by multiplication, I'm going to divide by pi h. So 3b divided by pi h equals r squared. Under squaring, we would square root. So the answer should have been choice 1. Question number 4. You had to figure out which equation modeled the word run. So if 3 times a number is increased by 24, is increased by add. The result is that equals 4 less than 7 times the number. Anytime you see that word, that phrase less than, you have to read what comes after it first. So 7 times the number, then subtract 4. So the correct answer here should have been choice 3. Okay, so if we take a look at number 5, it says which expression results in a rational number. So the first choice I'm being given is L plus M. So that would be radical 2 plus 3 times the square root of 3. I have an irrational plus an irrational, so that's always going to be irrational. Then I look at choice 2, m plus n, so that's 3 square root of 3 plus the square root of 16. Now I have an irrational plus a rational, but that's still going to always be irrational. Choice 3, p plus l is the square root of 9 plus the square root of 2. That's similar to choice 2. I have a rational plus an irrational. That's going to stay irrational. So my answer is choice 4, and the reason is n plus p is the square root of 16 plus the square root of 9, which really comes out to be 4 plus 3, which is 7, which can be represented as a fraction of integers. Oh, not 7, choice 4. Okay, let's take a look at 6. So we're being told that t is equal to negative 3, so then what is the expression 3t squared minus 2t minus 1 equal to? So I'm going to plug in negative 3 for t in this expression. So I'm going to use parentheses when I plug in that negative 3. Negative 3 squared, because it's in parentheses, that's going to come out to be a positive 9. So 3 times 9, negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6, minus 1. If I continue to combine, I end up with a positive 32, choice 4. Now, if we take a look at 7, this is a coin question, so we're going to set up our type number value total chart. And it's talking about nickels and dimes, so I only need 2 extra rows here for my nickels and dimes. So they say John has 4 more nickels than dimes. So I'm comparing to dimes, so dimes is my x, and I have 4 more nickels than dimes, so that's x plus 4 or 4 plus x. And it says it's a total of $1.25. Which equation could be used to determine the number of dimes? So they don't actually want us to solve, they just want us to set up the equation. So I'm going to set up my values, 5 cents for nickels, 10 cents for my dimes, and then remember, we always take our number and value columns and set them to be the product, multiply them to get the total. So 0.05 times x plus 4, 0.10 times x, you don't really need that parenthesis, and I know it's going to be equal to 1.25. So if I set up my total columns now to add down to the total, I end up with this equation equal to 1.25, which is choice 2. And number 8 is asking us to solve for x. So I would start, I'm going to rewrite this equation. And we're going to start by distributing. So let's distribute this 3/5. So 3/5 times x is just going to be 3/5 x plus 3/5 times 2 is going to give me 6/5, and it's equal to x minus 4. Now there's more than one way to solve this, but I'm going to start by subtracting my 3/5 x on both sides. So I end up with 6/5 is equal to, now really this x has a 1 in front of it, so I'm doing 1 minus 3/5, which gives me 2/5x minus 4. Then I want to combine my constants, so I'm going to add a 4 to both sides. And I get it, again, you can write this out as a decimal if you want, if you're using your calculator. This comes out to be 5.2 is equal to 0.4x. And then I'm going to divide. You could have kept these as fractions, but at this point I was using my calculator, I turned them into decimals, and this division gives me an x value of 13, which was choice 2.
Taking a look at question 9, you had to find the error. So what you're going to do is you're going to tell the work. So if you look at line 1 to line 2, you want to see what the person did in order to solve. So what they had done is added 2. So if you look at the second line, did they do that correctly? Well, let's see. You have 3 times x plus 4, that didn't change, equals 18. 18 is what 16 plus 2 would give you. So between line 1 and line 2, that step was correct. Now let's look between line 2 and line 3. Well, it looks like the person tried to distribute. So 3 times x gives me 3, so that's good. But 3 times 4, the problem occurred right here, because that should have been a positive 12. So the error occurred between lines 2 and lines 3, so the answer to number 9 is choice 2. If you look at question 3, there's one fraction on the left-hand side of the equation and one fraction on the right. So you can cross multiply. 12y equals 4 times the quantity of y plus 1. That y plus 1 is a binomial, needs to be in parentheses. Now I'm going to use the distributive property to solve. All the y's on the same side. Divide by 8. You get y equals 4/8, which simplifies to be a half, choice 2. So if you look at question 11, well, the associative property. Associative property means if you look at the left and the right side of the equation, different values are grouped or associated together. So the correct answer here would be choice 1. The order stays the same, x, y, z, x, y, z. However, on the left side of the equation, the x and the y are grouped together. But on the right side of the equation, the y and the z are grouped together.
Okay, so now for part 2 questions. Number 12 wants us to solve algebraically for x, and there are 2 ways that I can do this. So I'm going to go into both ways. The first way would be to cross multiply, and the other way would be the LCD method. So I'm going to start by the cross multiply method. So if I take a look at my equation, I have x minus 2, right? X minus 2 over 3 plus 1 over 6 is equal to 5 over 6. So in order to cross multiply, I do need to have one fraction equal to one fraction. So I'm going to combine like terms. And I get x minus 2 over 3 is equal to 5 minus 6 over 1 minus 1 minus 6 is going to give me 4 over 6. So now I have a fraction equal to a fraction. I can cross multiply. And what I'm left with is 6 is multiplying that binomial x minus 2 and equal to 3 times 4, which gives me 12. Now I'm going to distribute my 6, and I get 6x minus 12 equals 12. Combine my constants, and I get 6x is equal to 24. So I just need to undo that multiplication, divide by 6, and I get x is equal to 4. Now that's only one way I could have approached this problem. The other way would be to use the LCD. So I'm looking at my denominators. I have denominators of 3 and 6. And if I think about the multiples, 3, 6, 9, 6, 12, 18, 6 is going to be the least common multiple between 3 and 6. So I want to multiply by 6, since that's my LCD. So if I rewrite this again, plus 1 6. Alright, so now I'm going to multiply everything by 6 over 1. So if I multiply this by 6 over 1, multiply my second term by 6 over 1, multiply my last term by 6 over 1, I end up with an equation that looks like this. Multiplying my numerators. And now I'm going to simplify. So if I distribute here, I get 6x minus 12 divided by 3 plus 6 divided by itself is 1, and that's equal to 30 divided by 6, which is 5. Now I can divide 6x and negative 12 by 3. So 6x divided by 3 is 2x, negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4, plus 1 is equal to 5. Combine like terms, I get negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3, which is equal to 5. I'm going to bring my constants over to the right. I get 2x is equal to 8. And undo that multiplication using division to get an x value, again, of 4. So either approach would have worked, and you get x equals 4 in both cases. Okay. Now, since I wrote all over the page, let's take a look at 13. So I'm going to solve algebraically for x. So again, I'm going to start by just rewriting my equation. Okay, so before I can ever even look to combine like terms or start solving for x, I have 2 things I need to distribute. I need to distribute this positive 3, and I need to distribute this negative, because this negative is really a negative 1 in front of that parenthesis. So I end up with 3x, 3 times x plus 3 times 7 is 21, minus 5x is equal to 12. Negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x. Negative 1 times negative 9 gives me a positive 9. Now I'll combine like terms, so on the left-hand side here I have 21, negative 5x plus a positive 3x is going to give me a negative 2x. So that's going to be equal to 12 plus 9 is also 21, minus that 2x. So you could have seen maybe at this step that I have the same thing on both sides of my equal sign, so I do have infinitely many solutions, which is going to be my answer, but it doesn't mean that you might have seen it in this step. So if we didn't see it yet, we could have added the 2x to both sides, which would give you 21 is equal to 21. You also, maybe you decided to subtract your constants first, which would have given you negative 2x is equal to negative 2x. And if you still didn't see it, maybe you divided by negative 2. And you would have ended up with x is equal to x, which all of these will be true for all real solutions, infinitely many.
Okay, taking a look at question 14, you had set up a let statement or a drawing, but when you're talking about a figure, it's easier to make a drawing. Here we're talking about a rectangle. The width is 4 feet shorter than the length. Label the width x minus 4 and the length x. And you should realize that in a rectangle, opposite sides are congruent. The right side is also x minus 4, and the bottom side is also x. We want to find the dimensions between the length and the width of the carpet. The perimeter needs to be 16. So perimeter means to add all of the outside pieces. Set that equal to 16. Or you could have said 2 times the length plus 2 times the width equals 16. Either way, when you combine like terms, you should have gotten 4x minus 8 equals 16. Added the 8 to both sides, you would have gotten 4x equals 24. And divided by 4, x equals 6. But you had to go back to your diagram and write out what the dimensions were. So now we know that x is 6, which is the length, but dimensions mean length and width. So you had to plug the 6 in here for the x, and you would have found that the width was 2. Taking a look at the last question, this one was a tricky one. We're talking about a mixture of them, so I'm going to make a type of value total chart. Raisins, peanuts, M&Ms. They tell me that I have 1 part M&Ms, 2 parts raisins, and 3 parts peanuts. And then they tell me how much each costs. So raisins is $8, peanuts is 3, M&Ms is 2. I'm going to multiply across to get total, so I get 16x, 9x, and 15x. So I know the total amount spent is 750. Now I'm going to set up my equation, which would be 16x plus 9x plus 15x equals 750. When you combine like terms, you get 40x equals 750. Divide both sides by 40. So x is 0.1875. Never round unless the question says to round. But they didn't want to know, but x, what they wanted to know the weight of the package. Go back up to the top of the problem and say, okay, well then 2 times 1.875, that would give me 0.375. And 3 times 0.1875 would have given me 0.562. And then I know this part, 1x, would be 0.1875. So I'm going to take those 3 values, I'm just going to reduce the bottom so I have more space. I'm going to add them together.